All right, welcome to Shop Talks. I have Nick Buettner here from Imaging Supply Warehouse, who is a real up-and-comer in the up-and-coming technology of Directive film. That's the topic here, and I want to thank our sponsors, Haynes, Impressions, and I'm from the Ink Kitchen. So we're going to talk a little bit about the basics of what is Directive film, and then we're going to get into a little future talk. How's that? All right, so what's Directive film?
Okay, so Directive film is a pigment-based printing process, inkjet printing process, where we're dispersing CMYK plus white down onto a PET release film. After we've printed the PET release film, it travels through we'll call a powder bath. It's an adhesive powder that sticks to the wet area on the film where the ink is. And then the film travels through a conveyor tunnel and is heated so that the powder is melted and the inks are cured or gelled like in a typical transfer process. The process spans the commercial or industrial application, which would be roll to roll, and then the DTF, so a lot of people in the industry are calling it direct to film, but the DTF coming from China really meant direct transfer film. So that's a little bit of a misnomer. A lot of people didn't understand that, but whatever you call it, it's a really innovative technology. It's using almost the same ink technology as your direct-to-garment printers, right? So a lot of the direct-to-garment printers in the industry can now be converted, or there's no conversion necessary. It's really just a function of the rip, where you're telling the white to put down last instead of first, right?
It has some really great advantages. You want to go over some of the advantages of direct-to-film, some of the key elements of why people are so excited about it?
Absolutely. So I would say there's quite a few. The first would probably be throughput as it compares to direct-to-garment, right? A lot of people with direct-to-garment, if you're printing a left chest logo on a shirt, having to go through a pre-treat process, after the pre-treat process, having to cure the pre-treat, after curing the pre-treat, having to put the ink down, then cure the ink.
I'm exhausted just hearing about that.
Yeah, I'm tired saying it. The direct-to-film, it prints, after the transfer is printed, you have a 10-second dwell to apply. The other advantage, I'd say a major advantage, would stem from the fact that we are using a powder adhesive, right? So we're taking a digital process, but we're using a mechanical adhesive powder in the digital process. So now I can change that adhesive powder based on the application. So if I'm trying to apply to a nylon bag, I can use an adhesive powder that would bond to that nylon bag. So it's a very flexible technology, whereas direct-to-garment is really targeted for a cotton or a blend. And if you print on poly, well, it's got to be a special direct-to-garment printer, or you have to do this to the garment beforehand. Direct-to-film is pretty, or direct transfer film is pretty straightforward. It's a transfer process, and if you've got a fabric that's sensitive, you're going to try and use a lower temperature, and you're going to extend the dwell a little bit, and you're going to have good success.
So it also works great for different locations on a garment.
Correct.
Too, right?
The sleeve, decorating a backpack with 20 different pockets that you don't want to try and put on a platen. People will usually build a relief up in the heat press so that you have separation from the entire platen, and just decorate with the heat hitting just that exposed portion of the garment or item.
Sometimes you wonder why a technology is come into play. Seems like maybe the improvements to film, improvements to adhesives, improvement to the transfer machines themselves, right, are all probably key to why this is having its day all of a sudden.
Yeah, so I worked for a large paper mill based in Europe for 7 years or so, and we chased this technology the entire time, spending huge amounts of money trying to come up with a solution paper-based as opposed to PET, right?
See.
And so we had some difficulty arriving at the proper surface tension to hold on to the water-based inks and not run right off the paper. We did some experimentation back in the day, I mean, 6 years ago with Brother, actually. We had a whole You know, we thought we had it, but it just couldn't get the ink to stay on the sheet.
So adhesives are a big part of it, right?
Absolutely, and the adhesives that are out there, there's over 300 different types of adhesive powder, right? So that's substantial. So what do you use? What has bad stuff in it? What doesn't? You know, what can be applied to children's clothing? So yeah, adhesive's been around for a long time in litho transfer and screen transfer. So I think if we take a page out of that book and really study what they were doing, I think that will lead us to the answers on the DTF side.
So another exciting thing is, it seems like with, labor shortages are not going to go away. And so everybody's trying to automate their processes so that they make less mistakes, they need less people. Seems there's a lot of promise for Directive Film for people with online stores and fulfillment to, you can print out a variety of designs and even barcode them, right? So you can pull up the right, you want to get into that a little bit? Some of that automation, you want to talk about how that can work?
Yep, so the barcoding thing was actually a little bit of a struggle at the beginning because in most processes we would print the barcoding with the technology that's doing the printing. But because we run through a powder bath, that would cause the barcode to be covered in powder, and then you can't read it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it won't, the powder actually crystallizes at the surface, so when that beam comes down to scan, it scatters after it hits the crystallized surface. So yeah, the way to barcode properly with DTF would be a sticker. You'll use a separate digital device to print out all the stickers, and there's automated systems to do it. But,
are people doing that yet, or is that just something that's promised?
No, the big guys are doing that.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, strangely enough, this technology hadn't been out there that long, and I have shops that have 10 DTF print. I mean, and that's just the beginning.
We're going to talk to the merchandise guys later this afternoon. I think they're getting into some of that kind of idea, right?
Yeah.
It's more and more, it's not how fast you can produce something, it's how do you put all the pieces together, right?
100%. And this, again, when we talk automation, it is an automated transfer process all the way to the point of completed transfer, right? Whereas any other process, if we look at the Creo laser technology for polymer-based transfers, it's a two-step sheet that you have to put together and peel apart, and then we apply that over here. If it's direct-to-garment, you've got other steps before you can actually print.
It seems like it's a really great piece in that whole thing of what garment, what design,
Absolutely.
And where does it go? Because until you mail it, you don't make any money.
Agreed. And I think that all technologies are applicable. I don't think there's one technology that's this is the only one I need. I think there's still a room for direct-to-garment. We were talking about this earlier. The larger the imprint, direct-to-garment has a lot of merit because they can get a softer, more breathable feel than you can with a giant transfer on the front of your garment.
Yeah, we had Jacob Edwards from Jack Prints here. He very wisely said, increasingly people do not give a shit how the design got on the shirt. They just want that design.
They want their design. And with DTF, it's giving you that option to have that one-off design, or that, where traditionally screen transfer, no one's making one piece, right? As screen print, you're not making one piece. Direct to garment, you make a piece, but then you have limited application as to what you can put that on.
Right, and I know the technology is emerging so that you can get different, hand to them.
Absolutely.
But even without that, it seems like with all the online selling, hand is maybe not as important for a lot of people.
Yeah,
is that probably true?
For print on demand, people take what they can get. But I think as the market grows, they'll become more educated. I think the technology is going to advance. So we're already seeing, I think it's at the show, you'll see Cobra Flex, I believe is the brand, is jetting the adhesive. So they've gone away from the powder. They've suspended the powder in a vehicle, and they're jetting that out of a head. So printing glue out of a head isn't probably at the top of my list of things that I suggest you do. But if you want to give it a try, go right ahead. But I do think they'll get there, right? Initially, we're trying to use Epson-based print heads, and we're trying to jet this adhesive through a piezo-based head. I think heat might end up needing to be a factor, right? And there are other heads out there that utilize heat in getting things to work.
Yeah, so where is the technology headed in, besides the acceptance of maybe the hand that it has now, how are they going to get to the different hands, and how what's next, sort of?
I think,
and the process can be, different machines. Is it all going to be one machine, all that?
So I think you have a little bit of buy-in from the, we'll call them the usual suspects, right? The Japanese printer manufacturers are the ones we want to make DTF printers. Okay? We get the printer from China and it works, but a lot of the implementation of that technology can be a little more cumbersome than working with a Roland or a Muto or a Mamaki or an Epson, because they've been doing this for a very long time, whereas the Chinese DTF solution, it works, but it might be a little janky. Can I use the word janky?
Yeah, I think that's a good word.
So I think moving forward, as some of these larger printer manufacturers buy into the technology, because they already have the pigment-based printers. They already have what they need on the front end. It's just a matter of marrying that to a shaker, like a powder shaker dryer, to have the inline solution. So I think that's one of the I think that will help propel it forward, right? Direct-to-garment was fast T-jet at the beginning, and was everybody loving those?
No.
Not so much. Now we've got Epson and Brother and these big manufacturers involved, and do people like the technology? Absolutely.
I think that's probably right. The Mutos, the Brothers, Epson, when they really buy in, it's going to change dramatically.
It's going to increase the speed with which the technology advances, right? I think that's the other thing. You're going to get faster. These machines are going to become more industrial. Currently, you're seeing everything at about a 24-inch width, right, or smaller. I think, again, in printing, if you want to go fast, you need to go far, because the head accelerates as it moves, right? So I can't accelerate very far if I'm only going 12 inches or 24 inches. So if you look at all the technologies in wide format, even if they're printing small things, they still have a 60-inch machine, because the head has time to accelerate and decelerate before it stops, and then the same again. So I think wider, faster. We talked about dispersing the adhesive. I think that technology will improve. Currently, the machines that are set up out there are set up with one type of head, right? So if I'm running a DTF machine, I can only have an Epson head in the machine. I think the future, or a Kyocera, I can't have one Brother head and one Epson head. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
But I think that may be the future as well, because I think you're going to find the adhesive would require a different head to jet properly than the CMYK or white.
Right. I think I'm going to... Actually, one last thing. We just talked in Atlantic City, and it seems like this is just on everybody's mind. Every conversation seems to have directive film in it.
Yeah.
It's really taken off. Yes.
It is blown up. I personally think it's because of weeding. People hate weeding. So if you're print, cut, weed, mask, it's just a difficult process.
Everybody likes weed. Nobody likes weeding.
Exactly.
Right?
In California, we could say that.
Yeah. We could say it in Massachusetts too. That's where I'm from.
Right on.
So let's open it up to questions. We don't have that much more time here with Nick. Any questions?
Yeah.
So the question is about child-safe powder.
So if I were going to be looking towards finding the right powder, obviously you need to know your MSDS. You need to know what's on the HAPS list, on the SARA 313 chemicals, Prop 65, all that fun stuff, right? But more importantly, you can just use like the OEcotex certification. If it's OEcotex certified, then it's safe. So I don't know how many of the powders out there you're going to find have been through that certification process. But again, I would lean more on the screen transfer and litho transfer side of things, because they've been doing garments for kids for Garan and all the big names out there. They're using safe powders. So they exist. You just got to find them. And that's, again, I think that's a big problem with everybody selling DTF. There's not... The big names haven't bought in yet. And I'm not talking just the manufacturers. Look at the big companies out there. They're not selling DTF. It's all smaller organizations. Well, if you end up with a bad powder and you put it on a whole bunch of stuff and a bunch of people get sick or have rashes, and it's a small organization that did that, there's no recourse. So the big companies are treading carefully right now and trying to make up their minds.
Other questions?
Yeah, be careful when you move your arm. You'll get called on.
Come on, what's the question?
Go ahead.
We're going to repeat the question, but first we have to hear it.
The Eno system that's in the back corner, they're using a screen print adhesive instead of digital printed. What's your take on that?
So the question is on a process that's in another part of the thing, another part of the show here, where they're screen printing the powder.
Yeah, this is a really good question, actually. So that process is a digital front end, right? So you can get your digital color by virtue of a laser printer, like the Creo laser in the back. You can use an indigo press. You can, anything that's going to be a digital printer, they have an option for that. Not an inkjet printer, but laser and other high capacity machines like the Ricos and so forth. They'll do the color there. Then they screen print the white, the underbase behind the color. And the InnoPress is unique in that it auto registers to every sheet. So it's actually, because we can have some movement in digital machines from sheet to sheet, even if it's minute, we know if we're trapping the white, we can't have movement. That's a problem, right?
Yes.
So the InnoPress actually moves for that, puts the white down, then because it's film, it goes through the tunnel, it cures the white, it's film, so it's stable, and it's been pre-shrunk, so it doesn't absorb any moisture. You run it back through the process, and you can put the clear adhesive down. Right, so that's a printable adhesive. It has to be screen printed on. The jet adhesive out of like a Cobra Flex printer, that is that same concept. You're suspending the adhesive in a liquid so that you can put it down. The idea there is that you create a softer hand. You're able to create a thinner layer of adhesive that gives you a softer hand on the garment. But again, I think different powders, PU versus polyester. There's some high temp polyester powders. I mean, what do you want to do with it? Are you going to commercially wash this? Is it a bag
That was my next question. How durable are the?
I mean, they're fantastic. I don't want to overhype the technology, but it's going to hold up as well as any direct-to-garment or as any other transfer that's been printed digitally. If we're going to compare it to a screen transfer, I think the screen inks have a higher energy. They're more. There's more to it. There's more there. So I think I've still got to give durability to the screen print. But is it acceptable? Is the digital technology acceptable? Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, even the digital laser transfers that aren't DTF, just the laser polymer,
Yeah.
they've come so far with those. Those are 50, 60 washes before you really start to see degradation. I mean, that's 10 years ago, we couldn't say that,
Right.
3 washes and it was half off the garment.
Not to mention, we've already sold people the idea of distressed and it worn looking is a good thing,
absolutely.
right?
It started looking great, but then now it's a distressed look.
That's perfect, right? Other questions about Directive Film, DTF? Direct transfer, what is the real word?
Direct transfer film. You
Direct
heard it here.
Direct transfer film.
Yeah.
Other questions about it?
Okay, well,
All right,
it must have been pretty
Nick,
informative, right?
Yeah, I think
no
so.
No questions.
So I think people's minds are blown, actually.
Yeah.
So you're going to be around the rest of the show
Yeah,
where people can...
I'm back in the innovation zone, so it's kind of like a sales-free, just go back there and learn about the technologies. We do 3 demos a day, so I've got one starting right about now, 11:30, 1:30, 3:30. That'll be today, tomorrow. I think we're just doing by appointment if somebody wants to see something. And they're also giving away $250 gift card each one of those demos. So get over there and register,
man,
Rick.
I guess so. Anyway, I want to thank Nick Buettner from ISW and thank our sponsors, Hanes and Impressions. This will be eventually on the Ink Kitchen YouTube channel and the Impressions YouTube channel. And you can check it out again there because you probably didn't catch it all because that was a lot of information.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I
Nick.
talk fast, sorry.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.